Can you believe that Sony, Microsoft, and Valve are taking L's in the last couple of weeks? That's right, the big console manufacturers and the biggest PC digital distributor are all having L's today. And we're gonna talk about Steam first because that's the one that I care about, and the rest is only gonna convince more and more people to just hop into PC gaming. It's a great place right here, so cozy. So Steam's L involves regional pricing on games, which apparently had some changes on Latin America and certain Middle Eastern countries. Steam is no longer following the currency of those countries. Instead, they're gonna convert to USD, which is fine if the price is not the same and regional pricing is still taking place, but regional pricing for some users is not taking place. Not only that, but if you made any subscriptions to Steam, you're gonna have to subscribe again because the prices are converted to USD. So why is all of this happening? Because apparently the economy in these countries is screwed and Valve can't really do much to mitigate them. So yeah, it's less Valve's L and more of the country's L, but if it is happening to Indonesia, I would actually admit that it is my country's L. Our economy is not great. Moving on from that, we got PlayStation 5's newest model. There's nothing wrong with that, but there is something wrong with their latest requirement. If you have a PS5 with a disc reader, the latest one at least, you're gonna have to be online to register your disc reader first. I mean, I get that things are getting more and more online these days. I get that online is one of the major requirements to play a lot of games these days. But not everyone who plays these consoles want to play the multiplayer. They just want to sit on their asses playing Spider-Man 2, a single-player game, which is, come to think of it, a missed opportunity. So an online requirement for a disc reader is bizarre and dumb. So what is the reason for this online requirement for a disc reader? Because it's an anti-piracy measure that they have to comply under Section 1201 of DMCA. Ah yes, we have officially encountered pirates' worst enemy, turning your consoles online and bricking your homebrew installations. Not a thing for older consoles anymore, but for the PS4, oh yes, it still is. And yes, apparently we are back in the early 2010s, where always online is an anti-piracy thing, something that our next console manufacturer is doing. Xbox's L in the past week is them preventing third-party controllers. There are loads of people out there that prefer using controllers that are not the Xbox. I personally prefer using the DualSense, and there are third-party utilities that let me to play the Xbox with that controller. But you can't do that anymore. Why? Because Xbox wants to have dominance over the accessories market, which is actually pretty freaking nuts if you ask me. Imagine if Apple doesn't let you to connect any other earbuds except the AirPods Pro, or Samsung doesn't let you to connect any other earbuds except the Beans. This is a terrible move to make, and it's only going to limit more and more people to move on to any other competitors. Just saying, guys, companies taking the L's are very common. They're run by humans, and humans make mistakes. Most of them are not mistakes, actually. Most of them are just dumb decisions after dumb decisions. The question is, how big those L's are? And will those L's break your deals with these companies? Personally, Steam does take quite a lot of L's, and I've called them out a lot of times in the past, especially when it deals with lewd games being banned off of the platform. But the platform is still pretty solid for its primary purpose, and that's PC gaming. It's still mostly good at that. Oh, and the Steam Deck is pretty good. On the other hand, Sony and Microsoft's L's are just icing on the cake at the top of their many other L's that have been a deal breaker to me. Being a PC user gives me literally no reason to get a PlayStation because their exclusives are gonna be out on a PC in a couple of years anyway. Not to mention, their exclusives aren't a system seller anymore. There aren't a lot of games that I care about that makes me wanna buy a PS5. Maybe because their exclusives have been rather mediocre lately. My system seller for the PS4 is Persona 5 back in 2017. Fast forward a couple years and that game is out on Steam. And not to mention, Atlus is bringing their new titles to PC as well, so whoop-de-doo! And goddamn, this Persona 3 Reload wallpaper is a bitch to find. Xbox is even worse. They have no decent exclusives, their games are on the PC in day one, and their Game Pass is also something you can get on the PC. And now they are restricting their console accessories only to the Microsoft certified ones. So you're adding deal breakers at the top of deal breakers. A couple more of this and the PC is an incredibly attractive platform, even for most people. I mean, seriously, you can plug in any controllers you like and they will work well. With the right programs, of course. And that's it for this hoopla. I got one more to talk about. You can see this hoopla and more on my APB Show stream channel, link down below. Go subscribe. Also, this video is brought to you by these absolute legends. You guys are fantastic. If you want to see your names among these people, then just $1 in any of these platforms, and you have supported this channel immensely. Seriously, thank you so much. And now, let's get to the next hoopla. Do you like to write fiction? That is absolutely fantastic. That is a hobby that a lot of people love as well. I myself love to write sometimes too. But writing fiction is an entirely different thing to publishing fiction. Just because you like to write fiction doesn't mean that it's good enough to be published. Now, I can totally understand why some people's fictions, whether it be original or fan fiction, are self-serving and are not meant for public consumption. Some people, however, think that some are meant for public consumption, and I think they are misguided. So there's a manuscript editor wishlist that wants books writers to write stuff that they want. Why? Because it's the stuff that pleases them, not the stuff that pleases the public at large. They are looking for SFFH, science fiction, fantasy, horror books that do not meet the following criteria. I found Appagenda to be pretty funny. I mean, I get that people aren't really fans of the Popo, but we already have loads of fiction where the Popos are the bad guys. Some of them are my favorites of all time, actually. Seriously, The Shield is so freaking good. Go watch it. But then again, we're living in a universe where something as innocuous as freaking Paw Patrol can be called Appagenda. Books that employ fridging. That's rather weird. Fridging is basically a fictional character's loved ones dying just to move the plot forward. It's weird because a lot of great stories come from characters' loved ones dying. I mean, granted, not all stories need to be Game of Thrones and have major characters just be killed on a whim. That character also includes the quality of that show. But there's nothing wrong with a couple of the characters' loved ones dying for the purpose of the plot either. It's basically the Spider-Man's canon event. Actually, we'll get back to that later. So what does the writer like? Well, some of these are pretty universal, like found family, protagonists that are too smart for their own good, enemies to friends, unlikely friendships, enemies to lovers, friends to lovers, slow burn, second chance romance, heist. These are all fine and dandy, but the rest are incredibly specific. Things like stories about embracing your identity and center BIPOC and queer happiness. It's almost as if the editor themselves are struggling about these and want someone to write about how to cope with them and validate their existence. The rest of these are just bizarre and written in internet fandom language even I don't understand. It's probably the editor's explicitly told and shown fetish. But hey, it gets better. The hobby of this editor is apparently burning down the patriarchy and destroying colonizers.
How progressive.
Wow, how rebellious and mainstream. It's so typical, it's almost as if these people were made in a progressive factory.
We talk about that all the time! We talk about that all the time!
You know what's even more bizarre? The writer wants books that are being given to them to feel more like, well, non-books. Granted, some of these were originally mangas, which technically counts as books. But when you are working on a book publication, wouldn't it make sense for you to want to have your book writers to write books instead of any other medium? Don't worry, guys. This editor continues the streak of baffling taste by citing Demon Slayer so many times. It's to the point where the editor just gave up and be like, you know what? Screw it. Do it like Demon Slayer. Now, don't get me wrong. I like Demon Slayer. I mostly read the manga and it's pretty decent, but I get the gist of the story and I like it. But that's the thing. Demon Slayer is a manga. Not even originally a light novel. It's a freaking manga that's been adapted to an anime. So I don't know why you even use this as an example, other than the feels and the vibes of the anime, which is an art form in and of itself, translating the visual medium into a written one. That's gonna tax a lot of creative muscles. And remember when I say that the writer doesn't like stories that encourage fridging? One of the good examples that the writer gave is Across the Spider-Verse, which is a story that does exactly that. One of the major plot points of Across the Spider-Verse is the canon event, where the Spider-Men have to go through some form of a traumatic event where their loved ones die, or else their universe will crumble. Miles clearly doesn't like that and chose to go on his own destiny to stop it, and do both, even though that will destroy his universe. Miguel is right on that one, by the way. Miles is an idiot, and he's gonna repeat the same mistake that Miguel made, and the one that Peter made in No Way Home, and the one that Max made from Life is Strange if she chose to save Chloe instead. Going back to the editor, I'm not even sure if this editor knows what the public really wants or can even make a distinction between what the public wants and what they want. If the requirements of publishing in this company is to fulfill your wish list, then I might as well just go to a different publication, like AO3. I'd get more value publishing there than here. And that's all for the Hooplas today. If you like this video, you can support me by liking and subscribing on this channel, and also the APB Show channel, link down below. Go subscribe. Seriously, thank you for watching, and I will see you all next time.